Archaeologists opened an Egyptian tomb, 3,000 years old, and inside they found honey, still in the jar, still amber, still liquid. They tasted it. It was fine, not just edible, actually good. 3,000 years old and perfectly preserved, with zero refrigeration, zero chemicals, zero technology. So what is honey? And why does literally every other food on earth rot, but this one simply does not? We put it on toast. We stir it into tea. We drizzle it over yogurt without thinking twice. But honey is one of the strangest substances in nature. It has no expiry date. It never molds. It never spoils. It can outlast civilizations. And the reason it lasts forever has nothing to do with magic. And everything to do with chemistry so precise it took humans thousands of years to understand. Today we are opening the jar on what honey actually is, how bees make it, and the fascinating science behind why it is essentially immortal. Most people think bees make honey from flowers. That is not exactly wrong, but it is not exactly right either. Bees collect nectar, a thin, watery, sugary liquid that flowers produce to attract pollinators. Nectar is about 80% water. It is essentially sugary water, nothing special. But here is where the bees do something remarkable. A bee collects nectar and stores it in a special second stomach, not its regular digestive stomach, called the honey stomach or crop. Inside that honey stomach, enzymes begin breaking down the nectar immediately. The bee flies back to the hive. It passes the nectar mouth to mouth, i.e., B2B, up to 20 times. Each pass adds more enzymes and removes more water. Then the bees do something almost unbelievable. They fan the honeycomb with their wings, thousands of bees, all fanning simultaneously, creating airflow across the open cells to evaporate the remaining water. By the time they seal the cell with wax, the nectar has been transformed. Water content dropped from 80% down to less than 20%. The sugars have been broken into simpler forms, and something entirely new has been created. That is honey. It is not collected from nature. It is manufactured by bees. So why does it last forever? 3 reasons, and each one is more interesting than the last. Reason 1, it has almost no water. Bacteria and mold need water to survive and multiply. It is not optional for them. It is essential. Honey with less than 20% water content is so dry at a molecular level that bacteria simply cannot establish themselves. They dehydrate and die almost instantly on contact. This property even has a name: osmosis. The honey literally pulls water out of any microorganism that touches it. It kills bacteria by drying them out from the inside. Reason 2, it is acidic. Honey has a pH between 3.2 and 4.5. That is roughly as acidic as orange juice or tomatoes. Most bacteria cannot survive in that environment. The acidity acts like an invisible shield, hostile to almost every microorganism that tries to take hold. Reason 3, it produces hydrogen peroxide. This is the one most people have never heard of. When bees process nectar, they add an enzyme called glucose oxidase. When honey comes into contact with moisture like a wound, that enzyme activates and produces hydrogen peroxide, the same chemical hospitals use to clean cuts. Honey is not just a food. It is a natural antiseptic that actively fights bacteria. On contact, 3 layers of protection, all created by bees, all without a single laboratory. Humans figured out honey was special very early. Cave paintings in Spain from 8,000 years ago show people climbing cliffs to steal honey from wild bees. Ancient Egyptians used it to sweeten food, to preserve fruit, and to treat wounds. Jars of honey have been found in pharaoh tombs, perfectly intact after 3 millennia. Greek athletes ate it before competing at the Olympic Games. Roman soldiers carried it to dress battle wounds in the field. Medieval doctors prescribed it for almost everything. For most of human history, before sugar refineries, before refrigerators, before preservatives, honey was one of the most valuable substances on earth, not just as food, but as medicine, as currency, as offering to the gods. A single jar represented weeks of labor by thousands of bees, and unlike almost anything else, it would last as long as you needed it to. But honey is not completely invincible. There is one enemy: water. If water gets into honey, like through a wet spoon, through leaving the lid off in a humid room, the water content rises above 20%. And suddenly, that protective barrier breaks down. Yeast that naturally lives in honey, harmless at low water levels, wakes up and begins fermenting. The honey starts to bubble. Then it turns. Then it spoils. This is actually how mead is made, the oldest alcoholic drink in the world. Ancient humans discovered that wet honey ferments into alcohol. Accidentally at first, then very intentionally. So the rule is simple. Keep water out of honey, and it will outlast everything else in your kitchen, possibly everything else in your house. The more scientists study honey, the stranger it gets. Manuka, honey, from New Zealand, has been shown in clinical trials to kill antibiotic-resistant bacteria that modern medicine struggles to defeat. Hospitals in parts of Europe use medical-grade honey to treat chronic wounds that antibiotics cannot heal. Honey applied to burns heals tissue faster than many pharmaceutical creams. It suppresses coughs more effectively than over-the-counter cough medicine, a finding published in peer-reviewed medical journals. Ancient peoples who had none of our technology somehow knew all of this. They used honey on wounds, for sore throats, for digestive issues, for thousands of years before a single laboratory proved them right. So the next time you reach for that jar of honey, remember what it actually is. It is not just a sweetener. It is a substance engineered by 60,000 bees working simultaneously, dehydrated, enzymatically transformed, sealed with wax, and protected by 3 independent layers of chemistry that make it hostile to every microorganism on Earth. It was found in a pharaoh's tomb, still good after 3,000 years. It heals wounds that antibiotics cannot. It is the oldest food in human history that requires no expiry date, because time simply does not affect it. The jar in your kitchen could theoretically outlast your house. If honey just got a lot more interesting, hit like. Share it with someone who uses it every day without knowing what it actually is. And subscribe to your channel.